Hello there! I've been promising this tutorial for a very long time, but here it is, finally. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make your very own maze puzzle box. For those of you who don't know what this maze puzzle box is, just click on the link in the right corner or on the link in the description. Anyway, from this point I'm going to assume you know what the maze puzzle box is. Before you start building your own puzzle box, I recommend you to watch the entire video. Okay, first things first. What are you going to need? Well, you're going to need wood, of course. In this video I'm going to use wood with a thickness of 5 mm, or short, just wood with a thickness of 5. You're also going to need a small ball. A marble will do just fine. Make sure that the marble you're using is just a little smaller than 2 times the wood thickness. In my case that will be 10, so I'm using a marble with a diameter of 9. Of course you're also going to need a jigsaw or something to cut wood, some sanding paper, some wood glue, a small rubber band, a big rubber band, 3 small nails. And as last, I recommend to use glue clamps. For the bottom of the box, you'll need a piece of wood with this exact dimensions. Keep in mind that the better you cut this piece of wood, the less sanding paper you're going to need. Now we're going to make the hiding space of the box. You can make this any size you want. I'm going to use 2 layers, but if you like to, you can use 10 layers or 100 layers. Why not? Once you cut these out, you can use some wood glue to glue the parts together like this. Make sure you let it dry while applying some kind of force. I'm using my glue clamps. While letting it dry, you can cut out the next 2 parts. If you use a small jigsaw, you can use 1 piece of wood to cut out these 2 parts. On the second part, you see a small pink square with a hole in it. In this square, you need to cut out a small hole. How big this hole is doesn't really matter, as long as there's some space left between the hole and the sides of the pink square. I left about 1.5 space between the hole and the square. I've got to say that the wooden parts aren't exactly the same as the cutting instructions, but that's because you're using the more updated building plans I made special for you. It should look something like this. Make sure the 2 parts fit into each other. The middle part should still be able to slide out at the bottom. If that's possible, you can glue this part onto the box. Make sure that the other part still fits inside before you glue it. The next 4 parts also fit into each other, but I'm going to show them separately. Don't be scared. I know there are a lot of dimensions in this picture, but it's less complicated than it looks like. It should look something like this. If you look closely, you can see there are 2 lines in the middle which aren't cut at an angle of 90 degrees. I did that to make it extra hard to get the marble in the right place, but you don't have to do it if you don't like. Everything should fit together like this. You have to make sure that when you move the small part on the left to the left, and I mean the part with the small hook, then you should be able to slide the biggest part out of the frame. But when the hook part is still back to the right, like in this picture, you shouldn't be able to move it at all. If this all works, you can glue it onto the part with the pink square and the hole in it. The part with the hole in it is a little bit bigger, so it should stick out at both sides. Just make sure that those 2 sides are the same. On both sides, it should stick out 1 time the wood thickness. These 2 parts are the beginning of the lid. If you put it all together on the box, it should look something like this. Make sure you can still slide the lid out before you glue the U-shaped part onto the main box, like you can see in the picture. And then make sure the glue dries well. Now I want you to cut these 3 parts. To make it a bit more logic, I'm going to call these parts part number 1, part number 2, and part number 3. I'm aware that the parts don't look exactly the same as in the picture, but don't worry, it will still work the same. Part 2 and 3 should be able to fit inside part 1. Part 2 should fit in the left top and part 3 should fit at the right top. Make sure they can still move all the way from the left to the right. Now put the 4 small parts inside the places like I already explained before. You can now glue part 1 onto the lid. Make sure you don't glue it onto the box and only to the lid. You should be able to slide the lid out of the box once the glue is dry. Now you can take part 2 and part 3 out of the box. The 2 parts which are still inside the box should be able to slide from left to right. I want you to slide them as far away from each other as possible. If you look at this picture, the one on the right should be all the way to the right and the one on the left should be all the way to the left, like this. Now glue part 2 and 3 onto these parts. Part 2 and 3 should also be as far away from each other as possible. If the glue is dry, you can test the mechanism of the box. Part 2 should be moved to the left as shown in the picture. First, make sure that the marble can move free throughout the entire maze. To solve the box, you have to make sure that the ball is in this exact position. If you move the part on the left, which is part number 3, then the marble should push the part on the right, part number 2, and make sure that the little hook is free so you can slide the lid out of the box main frame. Now we're going to cut the last 3 parts of the box. This part is the biggest part of the 3. This part is the smallest part of the 3, which leaves the middle part as last. You can cut these 3 parts out one piece of wood. If you do this, the wood grain will be the same when you put the 3 parts together like this. You can glue the middle part onto the top of the lid. Make sure you don't glue it onto one of the 2 moving parts. The 2 parts should still be able to move free once the glue is dried. Once the glue is dry, you can glue the small part onto the box. This part should only, and I repeat, only be glued onto part number 3. That is the part on the right in this picture. Even if you look really close, you can see that the small part is already glued onto the box in this picture. You can't see it at all because I cut 3 parts out one piece of wood, which made sure that the wood grain is the same everywhere. Make sure that if you move this part to the left, that the part on which it's glued should move with it. If the marble is between the 2 moving pieces, the piece on the left should also move to the left. If this works, you can glue the last part onto the box. Make sure that the marble is inside the maze and that there isn't any glue onto the 2 moving parts. Now you will be able to open the box with the marble inside, but you won't be able to close the box yet. If you take the lid, there will be a small hole on the back side of it. You will need the 3 small nails now. On the 2 moving parts there should be 1 nail, and all the way to the left there should be another nail on the place which can't be moved at all. You have to watch out that the nails won't be too long. They should be between 2 times and 3 times the wood thickness. Make sure that the nails won't stick out. The heads of the nails should be inside the hole, otherwise you won't be able to close your box. Now you need to use a small rubber band between the middle nail and the nail on the left. You're also going to need a big rubber band, which should be placed around the nail on the right and the nail on the left. Your box is finished now, congratulations! However, there are a few points which still can improve. I used a specific knife to cut a pattern at the top of the box, which made it look quite nice if you ask me. You can also use sandpaper to make everything look a lot smoother. Doing this right can make your box twice as beautiful, so I definitely recommend using sandpaper. I also used some wood oil to make the wood look darker and more expensive. And that's really it. I hope you understood everything I explained, and if not, you can just leave a comment below. This is the very first tutorial I ever made, so please let me know what you think I can do better. And hopefully I will see you in my next video.